I'm 74 years old, and last night I forgot to turn off the stove. Not for a few minutes, for hours. I'd put water on to boil for tea around 6 in the evening. Walked into the living room while it heated, sat down in my chair, and that's the last I thought about it. I woke up at midnight to a burning smell and found the kettle on the stove, bone dry, the metal discolored, smoke in the air. The burner was still on. Had been on for 6 hours. I stood there in my kitchen at midnight, staring at what could have been a fire, what could have been my house burning down around me, and my hands started shaking. Because this wasn't the first time. And that terrified me more than anything. The forgetting started small. Everyone forgets things, I told myself. Where you put your keys. What you came into a room for. The name of someone you haven't seen in years. Normal stuff, age-related stuff. Nothing to worry about. So when I'd forget why I'd opened the refrigerator or what I was looking for in a drawer, I'd laugh it off. Joke about senior moments. Pretend it was no big deal. But it got worse. Gradually, in ways I tried hard not to notice, I'd forget appointments. Not just misremember the time, but completely forget they existed until someone called asking where I was. I'd start making dinner and forget I'd already eaten. I'd take my medication and then, an hour later, couldn't remember if I'd taken it, so I'd take it again to be safe. Or not take it because I thought I had. I was never quite sure. I live alone. I've lived alone for 9 years, since my wife died. And living alone after 70 means there's no one there to catch your mistakes. No one to remind you about things. No one to notice when you've left the stove on, or forgotten to eat, or taken your pills twice. You're the only person monitoring yourself, and when you can't trust your own memory anymore, everything becomes dangerous. Have you felt this too? This creeping uncertainty about whether you did something or just thought about doing it. I started leaving notes everywhere. On the refrigerator, by the door, next to my chair. Reminders to turn off the stove, lock the doors, take medication, eat lunch. My house became covered in little pieces of paper with my own handwriting telling me things I should remember but couldn't. And even then, I'd forget to look at the notes. Or I'd look at them and forget what they meant. Or I'd remember the note but forget whether I'd already done the thing it reminded me about. The really frightening moments were the gaps. Times when I'd realize hours had passed and I couldn't account for them. I'd be sitting in my chair and suddenly it would be dark outside and I'd have no memory of the afternoon. Or I'd find dishes in the sink from a meal I didn't remember making. Or I'd be wearing different clothes than I thought I'd put on that morning. Not complete blackouts, just absences. Spaces where my memory should be and wasn't. When was the last time you felt confident in your own mind? When was the last time you knew for certain what you'd done and what you'd only thought about doing? My daughter started to notice. She'd call and ask what I'd done that day and I couldn't tell her. Not because nothing had happened, but because I genuinely didn't remember. She'd mentioned something we'd talked about the previous week, and I'd have no recollection of the conversation. She'd ask if I'd done something I'd promised to do, and I'd lie, say yes, because I couldn't admit I'd forgotten entirely. She suggested I write things down in a notebook instead of on random scraps of paper. Keep a daily log of what I did, what I ate, what medication I took. It seemed like a good idea. I bought a nice notebook, put it on the kitchen table where I'd see it, and then forgot to use it. Days would go by and it would sit there, blank, accusatory, evidence that I couldn't even remember to record my own forgetting. The stove became the biggest problem. I'd put something on to cook and then wander away, get distracted, forget completely. I burned more meals than I can count, filled the house with smoke multiple times, ruined pots and pans, and kept doing it because I'd forget I had a problem with forgetting. The memory of burning dinner would fade and I'd do it again. Do you catch yourself doing the same dangerous things over and over because you can't remember the consequences? 3 months ago, I left my front door unlocked all night. Not just unlocked, wide open. I'd brought in the mail and apparently never closed the door. I woke up the next morning and found it standing open. The screen door, the only thing between my house and the street. Anyone could have walked in, could have robbed me, could have hurt me, and I hadn't even known. Had slept peacefully while my house stood open to the world. That shook me badly. Made me start checking and rechecking the locks multiple times before bed. But then I'd check them so many times, I'd lose track of whether I'd actually locked them or just thought about it. I'd get into bed and lie there worrying, unable to remember, until I'd get up and check again. And again. Sometimes 5 or 6 times. Because I couldn't trust my own memory of having just locked them 2 minutes before. My son came to visit and found expired food all through my refrigerator and pantry. Things that had been bad for weeks or months. I'd look at the dates and be shocked. Had I really bought milk in March and let it sit here until June? Had that bread really been growing mold for 2 weeks without me noticing? He started going through everything, throwing away spoiled food, and I felt this deep shame. Shame that I couldn't even keep track of my own groceries. Shame that elderly living alone apparently meant living in filth and expired food without knowing it. The worst was when I forgot to pay my electric bill. Not just late, I forgot for 3 months. Until they sent a final notice threatening to shut off my power. I had no memory of getting the previous bills, no memory of throwing them away or setting them aside. They'd just vanished into the black hole where so much of my daily life disappeared. And I sat there looking at that final notice, thinking, what else am I forgetting? What other disasters am I creating that I don't even know about? My daughter found me confused one afternoon. I'd called her, upset, saying I couldn't find my car. She asked where I'd last seen it, and I couldn't remember. She drove over and found it parked in my driveway, exactly where it always was. I'd looked out the window and somehow not seen it. Had convinced myself it was missing. Had worked myself into a panic over nothing. She looked at me with such worry in her eyes, and I knew what she was thinking. She was thinking about nursing homes. About whether I was safe. About whether losing independence had already happened and I just didn't remember. That was 6 weeks ago. We've made changes since then. A home health aide comes every day now. Not to do everything for me, but to be there. To make sure I eat. To watch me take my medication. To check that the stove is off and the doors are locked. To fill in the gaps my memory leaves. And we got a medical alert system. Not just the button, but one with sensors that tracks my daily patterns and alerts someone if something seems wrong. The hardest part is accepting what this means. That I can't trust myself anymore. That my mind, the thing I've relied on for 74 years, isn't reliable. That living alone after 70, for me at least, means living with support. Constant support. Because aging and independence, in my case, have become aging and supervised independence. And that's hard to accept. Harder than almost anything I've faced. But I'm learning that accepting it is how I stay in my home. How I avoid the nursing home fear that haunts every older person. Because the alternative to accepting help is waiting for the real disaster. The fire I don't catch in time. The door I leave open when someone dangerous walks by. The medication I overdose on because I can't remember taking it. The fall that happens because I forgot my balance isn't what it was. All the ways that memory loss can steal not just your independence, but your life. If you're forgetting things more than you used to, if you're leaving the stove on, or losing track of time, or finding evidence of things you don't remember doing, please listen to me. This is serious. This is more than senior moments. This is your mind telling you that you need help, that living alone without support might not be safe anymore, that you need someone watching out for you before something terrible happens. There's still time to put that support in place. There's still time to bring in help, to set up systems, to create safety nets before the catastrophe. But there's not unlimited time. And waiting until your house burns down, or you hurt yourself, or you create a crisis you can't remember. That's when other people make all your decisions for you. That's when you really lose everything. So please, be honest with yourself. What are you forgetting? What gaps are appearing in your memory? What dangerous things are you doing without realizing? Because those are warnings. And ignoring them, hiding them, pretending they're not happening, that doesn't protect you. It puts you in terrible danger. If this story meant something to you, if you recognized yourself in any of it, I hope you'll subscribe to this channel. Share this with someone who might be experiencing the same frightening changes. Leave a comment and tell me what you're noticing, because you're not alone in this. Hit the like button if you found this honest and real. We need to talk about memory. We need to stop pretending it's harmless when it's actually dangerous. Independence means accepting help when your mind can't be trusted anymore. And that's something I'm learning every single day that I can remember.